You go through a lot of changes in school, in public school, because you've got all these bosses walking around, you know, and I got so pissed off a few times, I just went with it, you know, fighting with the guys, because they're so, you know, they're just there, and you're there, and those are the ones that tell you what to do. And, I have my own learning capabilities, you know, I like to learn what I'd like to know, you know, and I don't give a shit about, you know, like I don't like chemistry. I've got no use for it, because I'm not going to be a chemist. I just have no use for it at all. And what I need that chemistry has, I probably knew before I even took it, you know? And they just made me take chemistry.
They said, you can't go in the college course because you're not capable.
Yeah, they told me that too.
They said, you ought to learn a trade or something, because you'll never learn anything else.
So where'd they put you?
Well, the first year they just stuck me in all this stuff. And I went from shop to shop. You know. In the second year, I told them I wanted to learn something. You know. I went to my guidance counselor and said, I want to learn something. You know. I don't want to be a bum all my life. He said, okay, you know, don't worry about it. They just stuck me in these classes. I could have learned alone. A lot easier, without all the hassle.
Did you tell him you wanted to school?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had plans set up for it or something.
As head of the school committee, what did he say?
Fine idea.
Yeah,
No, but I think he was just bullshit.
He just bullshitted. You know, it made us feel like he was really Joe Cool and everything.
Because you knew you had to go through a lot of shit to get a school going. You have to get it accredited, and then you have to do something else so people get diplomas so they can go to college. And you got to get a building. Mm-hmm. You got to do all sorts of stuff.
I really busted hump trying to get a school going for quite a while.
Our school being almost totally of working class people, working class kids. We're giving each other a better break. I think we're just opening up more opportunities, you know. The public schools, they're linked hand in hand with the rest of society, you know. They put everybody into their category and they train everybody for their own category. Most kids can look back now to where they've come from and realizing that they've been screwed over and held back, you know. And in a sense that their minds have been locked up into a small world, into their working class world without it being called working class then, you know. I got more confident in the school because I began to see the way I was learning things, you know. I began to see that there was a different way of learning things, and it wasn't by homework, and it wasn't by hard work all the time. It was by experience. You know, the classes was a whole different way of learning things. It's more like the knowledge flows to you rather than it's pipelined down your throat, you know.
I think one of the main reasons that a lot of people come to school is that there's a place in the school where we can change, and that it's not a very stagnated thing where it's going to be this way and no other way.
I think it's the only place where the school can change with you and the school can change for you rather than you changing to fit the school. In the public schools, you have to fit into a mold, and if you don't, you know, you get into a lot of trouble. Whereas we sort of wanted a school where we could do just what you said, where we could learn and grow while we learn.
I was going into my last year. I was doing really well with Latin academically. You know, I probably would have gone to some fairly good college and, you know, ended up like everybody else. And I wasn't happy, that's all, you know. I mean, that's not what I wanted. I didn't know what I wanted. I knew I didn't want Cambridge Latin. I said, this group school sounds good. I'll give it a try, you know. It was it's probably one of the biggest decisions I ever made.
They all voted for it except that means it can be considered in our future dates and among standards.
So it's certified? The school's certified?
Yeah, you look at it, it is certified.
All right.
You're not only a teacher, but you are a member of the community. And a lot of the school does deal with their lives, the kids' lives, and our own lives. So you have to be open a lot of the time. But part of being a teacher, in a way, isn't being completely open, I think, although I'm not sure. I mean, that gets to one of the reasons I'm here, which is that having been a teacher in very structured situations, I wanted to just break down some of the structure and see what was left. You know, and if there was anything in me that made me a teacher, or whether it was all the attendance rules and all the other stuff that made me a teacher, you know. And I just think that's an incredibly important and hard question, you know, like what is it to be a teacher? And is anyone really a capital T teacher, you know, or are we all teachers and learners, and, you know, and how idealistic can we get about this and still have a school where kids get something?
To be middle class in this situation with working class kids, and that's a lot of my discomfort, because I don't know what it means, except that I feel a whole mixture of guilt and confusion and naivete and all kinds of things that I feel that I create as a separation between me and them. I don't know if it's a real separation or not. I don't know what's in their heads, in their image of me. You know, I don't know how it figures for them at all. But I think that's an important thing. There's so many subtleties about it to talk about.
Some kids want to teach a sewing course. Dave Bryan may teach a mythology course. He also might teach a karate course. And now, I don't know if you know about this, Mike, but Billy Idol says he wants to teach a course on coal mining. Yeah, I suggested maybe he could get you as a resource, too. But when kids start doing that, they're going to feel different about what it means to be a teacher. And other kids in their classes are going to feel different about that. And we're going to feel different about what it means for us to be teachers. And it may focus much more on the whole issue of, do you have something which you know something about, and energy in working around that you'd like to get other people excited about and give them some knowledge of.
I mean, you have to be conscious of the power you have over kids, but you also have to respect their knowledge of their lives and where they're coming from, and that, in fact, maybe they know better than we do. About a lot of things, or that they understand what the consequences are for them. In fact, they know probably a lot about consequences.
Finally, after enough kids asked, the teacher said, all right, we'll buy a little bit of beer. And then one of the kids came and talked to me and said she was really upset about that. And then she ended up having an extended conversation with Neil, and Neil brought the whole thing to all of the kids and teachers who were there, and we all sat around the campfire, and that's what. Yeah. Yeah, and that's when Peter felt we had a really exciting discussion.
Right. It was more than just a exciting discussion. It was like a way of teaching, or just a very kind of schematic system of all of us partaking in being teachers, all the way from the students who had the courage to speak up and say that she was uptight about it, to the teachers taking the initiative to bring that about when it was probably not too pleasant a subject. I mean, it never passed through my mind, I know, that it's time now to sit around the campfire for an hour and a half and talk about beer, you know, like, I would have just as soon gone and gotten the beer and come back. But then I started thinking about it and watching the whole thing bloom. And that, for me, was a lesson that was brought about by a series of individuals, not just, you know, teachers as we are here, but as kids too. I think we've got a long way to go on it.
Those are issues you just can't avoid. And artificial distinctions, well, you're students and you're under 21, we're not students and we're over 21, but we're responsible to your parents for you. I mean, those kinds of things it was really beautiful how the discussion transcended those things so that we could really relate to each other as people, regardless of what the particular mores or prejudices or laws of the society at any particular time happened to be.
We sort of take it as our responsibility to be attentive to the kids as individuals and to their education and to a whole bunch of personal things which go on, but I'm not sure it comes back the other way. I'm not saying that as a criticism or a complaint, but it's just interesting that institutionally there's that, we have sort of put ourselves in a very particular position with regard to these kids, and with the exception of something like Crane's Beach, where your own values are called into question by the kids and they say, now why are you doing this? It really mostly goes the other way.
When we went to Crane's Beach, then most of the people who went said that they wanted to buy beer, and they asked Neil or Peter, somebody was going back to town, and they asked them to get beer. And so everyone was sitting around, and Neil said, well, I think before we go out and buy beer, it's an issue, and we better talk about it, and so on. So everybody sat around for an hour and talked about it. And,
Not right.
well, okay, however you want to say it. I think that they were trying to talk about it that everybody was trying to talk about it. The only problem is that it's really hard to deal with an issue like that for everybody, and especially in a school, where you're in a dangerous position, it's true, they could come in and say, well, look, you're corrupting minors, you're serving them beer, we're going to take your certification away from you, and then just about everybody who's going to this school would have to go back to Latin.
Okay,
but why don't they say that? That's what I want to know. We don't have a school policy on drinking, we don't have a school policy on sex and drugs, so that means that as long as we don't have a school policy, we don't have any sex, we don't have any drugs, we don't have any drinking.
But a lot of people felt bad about it. They didn't feel comfortable sitting there with other people drinking. And that's what, like people weren't there, that's what the objection was, that they just didn't feel comfortable with other people drinking around them, because maybe, they drank because, to look, to be with everybody, or they just didn't want people to drink, they felt uncomfortable, and that's what the objection was.
That's absurd.
I'm trying to get at it's like if some of the people don't want to get high, they shouldn't get high, or let's put it this way, if some of the people don't want to do the things other people do, they shouldn't. But if the other people want to do things what they want to do, they should do it.
No, there are a lot of staff people that feel the way we do, but they're afraid to say anything because they don't want to sort of buck their fellow staff.
Okay, now that you can probably get around. Still, though, you may get some cool teachers that are going to be willing to do that, but they're still going to be responsible. It's just a legality. It's just they're overage. They're 21 years old. It's just it's.
That doesn't mean that they're responsible for us.
It sure does. You're minors and they're adults.
If we go,
that's the way it's written in the law books.
If we go as friends, that does not mean.
It's just a fact that you have to deal with.
Is he responsible for that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, but it's a legality. But anyway, I see this meeting as important. I also see this as coming to a close, and I'm going to leave anyway because I don't see this issue as anything valid. I'm going to stick by Neil if this comes down to an issue on something like this, because it only takes one time, just one time, and this whole thing can just get down the drain, and we'll all be back in our different schools, and it's been too long coming. But any other issues, we've got a lot of power because we've got as much power as the teachers, whether you think so or not. It takes the teachers and us to run the school.
It's a matter of this system, the principles of this school. Yeah, we left Latin, we fought hard, we got certification, but we brought a lot of that bullshit with us.
You need accurate attendance keeping, but given that you have that, I think that the person that calls to a student every time he or she misses a class is really doesn't give any leeway or any anonymity that a student might want to have for a day or two.
After one absence, the teacher's supposed to call the student? I don't think it's necessarily that you necessarily have to contact that student. I think that there should be a contact maintained between that student as immediately as possible. You should get some feedback as to where that student is. The way that the academic committee has resolved whether a kid wants to take a day or two off from the class is that student has the responsibility to inform the teacher of that if he's not going to be there. And legitimacy of the issue, of why he's missing is something else.
Right. So I'm just asking, I want an explanation as to why it is so important after one absence to contact the student. I can see, if all of a sudden they missed two classes, 3 classes. But there might be something might have just come up.
Well, I can see how you feel about that, but I can think of 2 examples in the last, well, really 3 in the past week or so, where a student missed 1 class and that student, it turned out, was in the hospital with blood poisoning. So it was something which we really should have known about right away. Another student missed a class, turns away, he's run away and has stolen a car. And there was another similar incident. So those all came in today because people did follow-up phone calls. So the point is that, you don't know.
I think there are very specific individuals in the school among the students, and I think we've agreed as a teaching body that we aren't going to specify those individuals who have to get a certain amount of support from the teaching staff in order for them to come to classes and to feel that there is an interest on our part and and a feeling of responsibility around the school that their presence is warranted.
Just in my mind, it seems to be blowing something out of proportion.
I'm really wondering whether this isn't too heavy along those lines. Is the academic committee going to be able to meet every week to go over attendance? Is that too heavy a demand to place on them, as well as too heavy a demand to place on the students? Because if you're not going to do it, I know as a teacher, it's going to frustrate me if I'm submitting all this information that's going nowhere.
Mike, how do you feel? Did you hear the question that Neil asked?
Are you going to meet, is the academic committee going to meet every week?
There'll be someone in that room, 5 days out of every week. Mr. Massey, whose day is today? But that's, and if it calls for a meeting, we'll meet when necessary.
One of the more important points in here is that teachers really do contact you, Peter, and get the information to you as quickly as possible. Then it seems to me if you are aware that one particular student, there's a lot of concern around his attendance or her attendance, I think you could say to Matt, you could say to me, listen, don't worry about so-and-so, but why don't you try to make a call to that person? Because a call there could be very effective.
The teachers deferred to the academic committee. They said they really wanted to hear what the academic committee had to say about this, and they felt, that it was really important that kids in the school be involved with deciding and implementing whatever is going to be done about attendance. And so we should find out the time, and if we don't have time tonight, I think we should know that right now. We shouldn't get halfway in.
I'm pretty sure we don't have.
Well, where are people's energies for the rest of the evening? Like, you've got a class, right? What do you get, psychology? All right, I've got psychology, and that'll end somewhere roughly between 8:30 and 9 o'clock. What are you doing, like, around 9?
I can't do it after that.
Why?
I'm almost sure. I'm just going to be exhausted for any more work.
So we'll go to 64 Bow Street, Pine Tree, and get drunk and hold a meeting over there.
No, let me put another alternative to this, okay?
Shit,
I like the drunk.
Can't get anything better than that.
I can't get drunk talking about the school.
Damn.
Okay?
You're too serious, Peter. Yeah, I see attendance as an issue to be dealt with, but I feel that the school is handling it in a way that seems almost like it's kissing ass for the students, you know, like.
But it's got to come from kids, you know. It's got to come from people that are actually undergoing the pressures of having to run a schedule and have to be at a certain class at a certain time.
You know, like, I have one case in mind. Smitty quit the group, said, no, I can't handle it anymore, you know. As soon as the damn thing got rolling again and it's really in good shape now, he comes back and says, you know, these classes really look fascinating, I want to take them. He's not even showing up for the damn things, you know. I just like to call him and find out where the hell his damn head is at, you know, with all this stuff, you know. And I'm not going to say, oh, Smitty, you know, like, you know, most of you people usually do. And you can't deny it. Usually say, oh, Smitty, you know, come and be in our school, please, you know. My ass, I'm just going to say, hey, Smitty, you know, are you interested or not? You know, what's going on? And, you know, if you're not, why did you sign up for them in the first place? Because...
Okay, but there are kids that we don't know as well as Smitty who may not be showing up for class, right? And we don't know whether it's because their mother and father are on a binge, or whether they're getting hassled by the police, or whether they got a job that they can't hold down, or whether their heads are really messed up, right? I would imagine that constitutes the new kids in the school who aren't showing up are going to be our biggest concern.
I don't know what was different in the summertime. I could do things like that, you know. I could handle talking to other students. I'm really not ready to explain it yet, but I don't know. After a while, I couldn't sit up there and pretend I knew more about the problems that people were coming to us with, you know, as to why they weren't going to their classes and everything. When I was having the same kind of hassles a lot with myself. It did make me feel more alienated. And then, so someone has to talk to the kid, and that's what makes it so hard, because I sit there and think, you know, well, you know, shit, this person, he, she is the same age as me, and you know, why should I be questioning them and, you know, asking them what's, trying to give them, you know, giving them a sermon. It ended up a lot of times, you know, you gotta, you know, get on the stick here. Right now the school is run off no authority. There's no authority figures or anything in the school. And that's what's so confusing. I can't really explain it. I get lost, but there's no set authority. Here's what I think. I think it should be decided, right? Whether there should be an authority group for attendance or whether there should be. And if there's gonna be, I think it should be something that is more forceful than the academic committee is, you know? That, I mean, if you know you're bullshitting, you know you're bullshitting. I kind of didn't say that there was a need for a stricter policy. I just said that it should be decided. I mean, by the whole community. That there should be a whole general feeling that either, you know, this school should have more authority or none altogether. And except, see, now you can't do it because you can't get the whole community there for a community meeting.
Well, what do you call authority? Maybe that's been raised up against.
You know, someone to say when student has cut X number of classes that, you know, look, start going to your classes, or, you know, drop out of school or go to a different school. I don't know.
Well, I think we should look at why they're not coming, but not how we can make them come and how we can set up an attendance thing that's going to make them come, like, I just miss one cut a week or whatever. I think we just have to look at why they're not coming, you know? Ask people why.
But that's what I said. I think they have to look at it themselves.
Yeah, but why can't a committee be set up to help people ask themselves why? I mean, that ideally is what the attendance part of the academic committee is about. I mean,
It
really.
seldom worked that way.
Well, I was in one, and it was horrible for me, you know, with the academic committee in the summer, and it was pretty bad.
Get on.
So, but what I'm asking you is, do you think that we shouldn't have anybody dealing with those problems?
Well, someone has to deal with them, but you don't have to make a committee, you know?
Who's going to deal with them?
I think it should be dealt with in each class, each individual class, not one committee for everybody, for one person's, you know, all of their classes, but I think it should be dealt with in each class. You know?
Then again, you're going to get another problem of a teacher coming downstairs and going, Jesus Christ, man, don't get fucking that, you know, and like it would just...
Plus, you're going to have one teacher playing off against, say one teacher is really strict and wants every student there, and if they don't come, they get in touch with the student, but another teacher just doesn't take that kind of action at all. That's more confusing for the students and for the teachers, too. I mean...
I'm really afraid of seeing any more committees in the school. A committee and a board caused enough problems, the whole thing of power and authority, and just adding another whole committee on, I just think that would just give people more people to be mad at. We just create more problems than we have. I'd really like to see us turn towards less and less committees and less work and less hassles and more good courses and more, you know, real student work, not just governance. We turned into 75% governance and 25% school.
Except that's happening in the classes anyway, though, now. Because if there's... As a teacher, I feel that I either have to deal with attendance or ignore it, and both of those end up being a policy. If I do it personally, then I get into that policing kind of role, and if I don't take any step toward attendance, then there's no one in class.
No one?
Well, one or two, and it's sporadic, and I get frustrated, and I think, you know, the class isn't good enough, or maybe the kids don't want to come because they've got other things to do, and it's just a very big personal hassle, and I don't know, I think it's really taking away from curriculum, or from what's happening in the classroom.
I really don't understand you people.
Well, we're a committee. We had to do something.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, why don't you have nice, simple report cards? They're so easy. 70s and 90s.
Because you would flunk every one. And even if it's very little, the fact that it's come from the schools is what makes them feel it well. You know, these are, you know, this is a real progress report. You know.
It's a really tough question, but, you know, do you feel that parents have some rights to know about what's happening to you in the school? I mean, some parents are helping kids pay tuition, and they have an investment in their kids, and I feel some responsibility to have you or myself inform parents about how things are going in the school and for you in the school. Now, you may see it from a different point of view, that it's your education and your parents don't have rights. I don't know.
Well, for something like you could go home and talk to your parents and say, you know, do you really think that this is necessary or something like that, and work it out somewhere like that.
I guess what I was thinking was that, you know, like you're saying, you tell your parents, you know, like what goes on, right? If you and the teacher write down those exact same things that you tell your parents and take them home, to the fact that it's written down, you know, and your teacher signed it and you signed it, you know, like they probably would trust that more, you know, like they would feel, you know, assured that they've heard some progress report that's not just you know, like that they could, you know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be any more than that if you don't want it to be.
The strongest disagreement, I think, was in having the teacher sit down and write about us, you know, by herself. just about like individuals, because of how we've seen it before, we just,
And I'm not saying that.
You mean about the group as a whole?
I'm not saying to do that. I'm saying you and I have a discussion about my teaching and your learning and so on, the course in general. Then instead of both of us, as Steve said, with one paper and one pencil trying to write a statement of that, you write a statement of that discussion about yourself. I feel that I really didn't put much into this course. However, my teacher seemed to think that I did and that I learned a tremendous amount. I find that it didn't mean too much to me. You do that. I write about my teaching in the course. I don't write about you. I write about my teaching.
I think there's a problem with that. I think people tend to be very self-deprecatory about their teaching, for one thing. I mean, I think it could be very hard for people to write about themselves, to pull away from the situation with the student and sit down and write about the course, because you don't want to sound Pollyannish, well, everything really went well, because there are always problems. On the other hand, how much into those problems do you get? I don't know.
I've always had all A's on my report cards and stuff, and he's really been always proud of that. And now I'm not sure how he'd react to it. My mother might feel differently, but it's just going to be a whole new thing for him, I don't know what he'd want to know. He's not so sure it's not a commie school anyway, so it's... I'm not sure.
Probably is short.
We talk to you.
We'll make him short. We'll make him real short.
No.
Do you think that that's a problem with many parents, that they are expecting A, B, and C, and that we need to write a paragraph explaining why we don't have that?
I think it's a good idea to explain to them. They're going to need a whole lot of explaining.
We can make a subcommittee and send everybody around to each parent's home. 3 teachers. That was a joke, but maybe it might be a good thing to do. To just talk to each parent,
I mean, they're not going to want to read all this goddamn literature.
This is a resource, Larry. It's not for them, though.
I really think that the kinds that evaluation is really necessary. But I think the only kind of evaluation that we really ought to think seriously about is the kind of evaluation that's going to be helpful to us as a group to grow and develop. Like, where are we strong? Where are we weak? But the kind of thing that you would take back to a parent or to an employer, that you want to avoid all the kinds of problems that you give, impressions that are too arbitrary and are abused and misunderstood. I don't know. One way to do it would be just write up some innocuous form that hardly says anything that you can just fill out.
My imagining things aren't there discussions that take place that where's this place you're going? These people look like people I see in Harvard Square. These are the people you call your teachers? Are those discussions, are those not concerns of parents?
Well, I think it's more credentials than looks.
Have any parents asked why we don't give out report cards? I think that the answer I would give is most of us spend all our time in school listening, but at the group school, one of the nicest things about it is the kids get a good chance to do a lot of talking, that we have a lot of courses in our curriculum and a lot of community meetings and things like that and committees, so that the kids play a bigger part in education and they have a lot more to say. And there aren't too many kids that can come home from school and say, I spent half my day talking to my teachers. And this can be a lot of fun. And I don't know how many kids actually tell their parents how much does go on in the classes, but I'm sure that a lot of them don't think of this.
Some parents won't listen. Some parents won't listen.
To what? Yeah, they don't listen to
you. They really
yeah.
don't care what's going on in school.
Oh, you mean to the
but
kid?
That's really important.
To the kid. Yeah. I think a lot of the questions you're going to be asked are questions that they should be asking us, but don't.
If my mother came here, my biggest hope, I think, would be that she'd just get a clear picture of what's going on, rather than impress her, just so at least she understands what I'm doing day to day towards education, you know. And if she can't understand it, or if she just doesn't dig it, you know. I mean, okay, but at least she really knows what I'm doing, and that way, if something happens, I don't go to college or something, she doesn't get false impressions. That'd be the best thing, you know, for me.
Well, did anybody come into this course with any different expectations of what it was going to be?
Which one is this now? I really forgot for a minute.
Look around you. What could it be? Open your mouth.
Oh, I already went through this.
Anything from doing the children's book? Or was it just fun to make pictures?
I think I said it was done.
I think we learned a lot from that, like how they put women in a certain category, like women's the mother, women's do dishes, women's take their babies for
books.
Cabbages and all that.
I didn't either, you know. It's really weird.
I know how they teach little kids all that.
Yeah.
I know, man. How can they help with growing up into...
Oh, I know.
Oh, it's just so awful. I know,
When you
man.
were in the drama class.
Would you like to have done more reading?
Yeah.
Does everybody feel that way, or?
Yeah, I think so.
I always come up with this, that we should all read the same book and then discuss it. Because that's when I have the most fun. It's discussing a book with other people. Because when we did the book, we each did a different book, and then we had to tell about it. You know, I couldn't get into that at all. Because I like to have different ideas about it, you know. That's what I really like to do, is read the same book. And then maybe write something on it.
I think, you know, one of the things that we're really going to have to work with next term is some people like to read and some people don't, and some people read easily and some people have more trouble reading, and we're going to have to find ways of, you know, giving more material to people who enjoy reading and find it easy, and giving more support to people who have trouble with it, and the same with writing, because we really try to do the same thing for everybody, and there are a lot of different people in the class with different interests.
I just wish that you two would get mad more. You don't, like when we don't do assignments.
I was ready to start. Get mad more.
I had this criticism in other classes, too. But you think we should have gotten mad more in this class?
Yeah. I mean, I could tell when you were, but you didn't show.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The only time I would ever get really openly mad in class when I was teaching public school was over discipline kinds of stuff. You know, when people didn't read assignments and stuff, I'd feel hurt. But when there was noise or paper planes or spitballs going on, then I would get really angry.
I remember one time you were mad when the people were being late. You walked in, you were really mad. Remember we were walking into the church and you were mad? And you kept on smiling when you're mad.
And that bullshit Peter pulled in the hard times evaluation about how it was his fault that we didn't do things. I could have shoved it down his throat. Teachers take the blame on themselves because, oh, this is a free school. We don't want to get the kids mad, so we...
Yeah. We're really worried about squashing people.
Right. Yeah.
And but maybe we're learning
then we'd
better
tell you
now.
back if we felt that you were doing it.
Yeah, but see, if a kid is lazy or something, all the kid has to do is say, oh, you're just like a teacher in Latin, and the teacher says, oh, heavens, oh, no, I didn't mean to hurt you.
Well, that's true.
It's a thin line, though, because sometimes you can really hurt someone.
On the issue of, like, missing class, when I told you I didn't want you to miss class, you were pissed at me. Right? Why did you get mad?
I did.
You got mad by withdrawing.
That's the way I get mad.
We all got things to learn.
Right now.
You are?
Yes.
Kick Adrian.
Wait a minute.
What are you mad about?
Oh, everything. Evaluation. The whole thing.
What is it?
I just no time. I don't even have...
She has to go to a board meeting in about 10 minutes.
Well,
I don't blame her.
I don't know. I don't even have time to get there. Because, you know, it's...
Andrew is driving us. We go right by the friend's school, so we want to go home.
Oh, I know.
So you're feeling really pushed, huh?
Well, hopefully next term will be better. I mean, people really do take less courses.
Because one thing I found out about this school is that they just keep asking you to do more and more. And I started out just going to do one little course, a couple hours a week, and I spend a lot of my week here now. I think that that's really true for all the students, too.
You know, there were people who were writing things and saying things who, you know, just wouldn't do it if guys were there. That's not good.
In women's history. Yeah, we did get into some heavy stuff, even though that wasn't the purpose of the thing. But, like, you know, that anthropology thing, I mean, we could have learned a lot from guys, I think, from that.
I have a suggestion. Maybe you should, let's think about this. What if there were guys? I mean, I keep getting back to it, but I don't understand why it would fuck the class up to have guys.
For me, women's history is very personal. I mean, it's not just history out there. It's my history, which I never learned before.
Right, but it's history we haven't learned before.
Yeah, so they should have the opportunity to learn.
I mean, like, some of us are really sick of being, ignorant about what women are accomplishing.
They never learn about that's why they can't even,
It's just like getting in the same fucking high school bag, like when you're black, you only learn about white history and shit.
I know.
So why can't we be men and learn about women's history and be able to appreciate
Let me ask you
it?
something, Dave. Would it be a different thing for you to be in a all black history class, or to be in a black history class with white people too?
It's just the same.
It would be the same thing for you, because that...
It would be the same thing because, like, they just learn about whites and they want to learn about blacks, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's tit for tat, man. We men, we want to learn about women.
I know. I mean, when people want to learn, why should you just tell them no?
There are different ways to learn, Jeannie. We're not trying to say that the guys shouldn't learn it. I'm wondering about the group dynamic. Do you really think that you talk and act the same in a mixed group and in a group with just women?
I do.
I hope they act the same. But, like, in this school, everybody's really together, so I don't think it would make that much difference.
Yeah, it's going to be totally different from what you taught in public school, no matter what.
It's not like I don't know these guys. It's not like I don't know the guys that come in the class.
Please try it.
I know all four of them, all four of the ones that want to come in, and I think it's really great that they want to learn about it.
That's great, too. I'm with you on that completely.
them. That's so wrong.
We're going to have a women's history course for men and a women's history course for women? I think there's some things that the guys should talk about without women around, too.
Sure, but that would be a men's discussion group, not a women's history class where men talk about men. That doesn't make sense. And, like,
I think that they have to talk about themselves in the way that they interact with women before they can really learn women's history.
This school is supposedly all about experimenting and trying new things and different things, but we go back to the same old shit, We're not willing to.
Allison, that's not the same old shit to have a all women's history class. I've never heard about that in the public schools.
No, I know, they don't have it there, but, like, it's a similar thing with the black and the white courses and stuff, like, shutting people out because they're not your kind. That's just not right. Shutting somebody out because he's a man and you don't want him in your class, that's not fair. Just like I wouldn't like it if I was shut out of a men's history class or a black history class or a Jewish history class.
Like last term, it got into some heavy stuff, but I think it probably, if men were in it, maybe it wouldn't get into the same kinds of heavy stuff, and we could just talk about that more in women's discussion. And
yeah, that's right.
And it doesn't need to get into that stuff because it's women's history.
I know. Why don't you just make it women's history, not make it so heavy?
Divide women's history from personal issues. The whole point of why women aren't in history books is because historians have disregarded women's role in history because it's been so personal, right? Women haven't been presidents, women haven't been senators, women haven't been the big political mucky-mucks that they write about. That's why women aren't in history books. In other words, what I'm saying is women's history is the history of personal relationships, of people in the home. All those things that are disregarded in regular history are very important in women's history, and they're personal, Judy. They really are.
It's like...
I'm not saying men should.
Men should learn those things, but it's a different learning experience for women to learn them without men there, that's all.
Go ahead. Can I say something? Like you said, like, the historians have, said fuck the women. And, like, I don't know, but I would suppose that, like, most of the historians have been men since, like...
That's right. That's right.
So, so they've, kicked them out. But why can't we come back, like,
Right.
Why can't we come back?
Well, we want you to come back, but not in that context now.
How? Why not? Because, like, I figured, like, when I come to school, like, there wasn't gonna be no bullshitting around, and, like, people would be people instead of a person being a male or a female.
You have to go forward to get there, right? You're staying in the same goddamn fucking place, Barbara.
No, there are lots of places, different ways of going forward. And one way of going forward is... That's right. That is one way. And another way is to have a context where you really feel safe and you can really gain courage to be yourself without those other ways that you compromise yourself as a woman when men are there.
You are talking about yourself, and you're not talking about our experiences. And we all feel that we could do that, but I think you're just worried about yourself.
What about all the women in the class? Do you think every woman in that class could handle having 4 strong males in that class? Do you think that the women that are in that class would have talked as much?
Strong?
All right, if you're going to be 4 weak men, maybe I'll take it. No, I'm not kidding. Do you know what happens in most classes? It's the guys that talk the most.
I talk more than any fucking guy in this school.
You're not every woman. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Jeannie talks just as much as Dave talks, too. So doesn't Judy, man. We're mouthy women.
Allison, there are women who are not mouthy women who I have seen come out in that class, and that's been the most beautiful experience in my teaching in this school. To see kids who never talked in classes with guys who are really taking leadership in that women's literature class.
But this school, this is what pisses me off. All this school does, like a lot of what it does, is focuses on protecting us. Right. We talked about this in Encounter. The Encounter teachers like to protect us. Everybody likes to fucking protect us.
Nelson. I think it's helping people to come out and get self-confidence in a way they've never had before, so they don't need protection.
So in other words, if we didn't come, and those girls that come out in class, right, they come out, and we get back in, even if they did come out, we come in, they'll still be back down, so we wouldn't be getting nowhere.
What happens is that they begin to grow and can begin to confront guys like you and talk to you in a way they never have.
Guys like Dave, I mean, why do we need to confront him?
He's a guy, and it's the same class. Yeah. There's no confrontation between males and females.
I mean, like, every time I meet a guy, I don't have to confront him. It's not that
Lenny,
very strong.
throw my smoke,
Do you
please.
understand that the way in which you're able to talk and express yourself and have confidence is different from the way a lot of women are?
But I don't think protecting them and keeping them by themselves is going to help that. It is. It's protection, damn it.
Just yelling at us, you know? I mean, I really think there's something in what I'm saying. I'm not just making it up to be difficult, you know? I've gone through mixed groups and groups without guys in it, and I've taught in a high school a women's course with guys in it and without guys in it, and it was really different. I'm telling you. That's just in my experience. It was a very, very different experience.
Everybody has, I don't know how we're going to work it out, but
it's going to be very hard. I hope that we don't get into a really bad, interrupting each other, screaming fight about it, because that's very destructive. I almost feel like I don't want to come at this point. I feel so, sort of put down and hurt by this discussion, and I'm fighting that. I'm trying not. I mean, I realized it was a bad situation. I walk in here, having not been in here in 3 days, and immediately find myself in the middle of this incredibly intense and, heated discussion, and I didn't understand where the intensity was coming from. I didn't understand what the underlying anger was, and I'm still having trouble with it. Why this assumption seems to have been that Barbara and I are imposing something on the group, because I don't feel that that is true. Now, if it is, I'd really like to talk about it. If you feel that we have been manipulating you.
I think fear is there that it's going to end up being a teachers against the student's decision, and that because the teachers are teachers, they're going to decide.
I think it should be clear from the outset that we want to respect the decision of the group, but we want the people in the group, in the history class, to really be sensitive to one another, and then we can respect whatever decision comes out. Even if it goes against our instincts. And if we go into it knowing that, I don't think that fear should be so strong.
Where do you think that fear comes from? that what we're going to make the decision for the class.
11 years of public schools.
Yeah. You just can't erase those 11 years so quickly, you know.
I think, I'd like to say that, Adria and I feel very hurt, and I sense that everybody here feels very hurt, and that we've all got to be sensitive to one another. Like, I may have hurt Dave, just like Allison may have hurt me or Adria, and, we've all got to be delicate about this when we go into it again.
And one thing that's really clear from this discussion is how deep these issues are to us, and how much they can hurt. Something is going on, inside each of us that's bringing out much more anger than I've seen at any point in this school so far, and that means to me that it's pretty important.
Well, it's being a woman, it's the feeling
pretty basic, right? Yeah. What we're arguing about is very basic, and it makes it even harder to be sensitive in the way Barbara's talking about. The more basic it is.
I really want to be involved in the complete women's course, but until the question of whether men can be in women's lit is resolved, until the question of whether women will be allowed in women's discussion is resolved, until all of those are answered, I don't want to commit myself to any of the women's courses, if I can do that, because I really feel strongly about the issues that we've been talking about, and I'm really confused, and I'm afraid that if I commit myself now, a week from now, if these things aren't resolved, I just might not come at all.
So you don't want to help us resolve the question in the women's history class?
I don't know. I really voice my opinion sometimes too strongly, and afterwards I feel guilty. The anger that I've said before, I feel so strongly about this school. I've been with it since the beginning, that it's just up on a golden pedestal. And anytime something happens that I don't think belongs on that golden pedestal, I fight like hell to get rid of it. And sometimes that fighting like hell hurts people. And that's the reason why I'm considering not doing any of the women's courses at all. Because I get really angry about these things. And people get upset when I get that angry. So sometimes I'm better off just being quiet.
I feel kind of emotionally tricked by violent discussion followed by withdrawal. I won't play ball with you. And I would feel a lot better about you and us if you tried to work things through, that it wasn't an all or nothing. It's very hard on people if somebody says, I won't have anything to do with you. It doesn't make for progress, which we're all trying to work for.
Up till this term, the school was a family, and it's changing from a family to a community. And in some ways, people find that very hard to deal with. Like, new people have come in, and there's been a lot more emphasis put on being careful about things since we're certified, like being careful about not getting busted and stuff like that. Yeah, another thing that came up was everybody feels that even with the free time, people don't usually show up for free time, and there's still as much alienation as everybody felt last term from each other, especially from a lot of the teachers, like that now things are stricter and people were talking about just little things like in classes that upset them, like one of the teachers saying, don't smoke in class, and when somebody threw a cigarette across the room to somebody else, the teacher said, don't do that, and classes have to start right on time instead of, taking time to walk over to the church together, and, just little things like that, but it seems like everything's tightening up. And, we just sort of wondered if everybody else felt that, and if anybody felt like they wanted to talk about it. Because I really think it's important.
When I wasn't in the school
during the days when like this was brought up, and I heard from Peter that that people were thinking of it. It's sad that it wasn't a family anymore, and I heard that. And I think in maybe one reference you spoke of yourself as a father in a sense, or Barbara as a mother, and and like what? Well, I mean to follow through the image that you're making, the illusion, and all of a sudden, like the thought passed through my head, like well, it's their family, All of a sudden, I realized that like you were these figureheads.
If that's true, maybe that's one source of the problem. That if some people here are considered better or more valued or more important, and we're increasing the size of the numbers, the sheer numbers, then at some point we reach a way that you can't cut the pie anymore. If two people are the most important people, and you start cutting the pie 8 ways, and then you start cutting the pie 30 ways, nobody feels like they had any pie.
And some of the depression or some of the problems are not things that come from the school. But a lot of the time when we get around to it, it's, I feel out of it.
I can't even, really get a feeling to sit down and talk to students anymore. I mean, like, I really go down that office, and it's a real depressing scene. I mean, the radio's going, man, and people are laid out on the couches, and everyone seems to be in their own world, And just the minute I get in the room, it sets off a feeling that it's as though you can't reach anyone, And it's really...
It's a bummer.
Yeah.
I guess it was because we grew so much, and it was more like a family. And that's what I mean. Like Kathy said, it was like a family, and now it's a school and a community. There's a lot of differences. There's a lot of changes in the school. And there's just so many things to do and not any time to do it in. In it.